There's a building in Washington, D.C., and inside it, a small group of people can create billions of dollars out of thin air. No factory, no gold, no permission slip from you, just a decision on a screen. They can make your rent climb. They can make your savings feel smaller. They can help decide whether millions of people keep their jobs or lose them. And here's the wild part. Most Americans can't even name the person in charge. They meet in secret-ish rooms. They speak in a language that sounds like a foreign code, and their decisions ripple into your bank account whether you like it or not. This is the Federal Reserve, the most powerful money machine on Earth, and today we're going to explain it like you're 5. Okay, let's start with a picture. Imagine the whole U.S. economy is one giant bathtub. The water in the tub, that's money. When there's plenty of water, people spend, businesses hire, everybody's splashing around. When the water drains too low, things get scary. People stop spending, companies stop hiring. Now, who controls the faucet? Not the president, not Congress. It's the Fed. Hold that thought, because to understand why one institution got that much power, we have to go back over 100 years to a secret trip that a few very rich men really didn't want you to know about. The year is 1907. America keeps having these things called bank panics. Here's how a panic works. A rumor spreads that a bank is in trouble. Everybody races to pull their cash out at the same time. But banks don't keep all your money sitting in a vault. They lend most of it out. So when everyone shows up at once, the bank runs dry. It collapses. Then the next bank, then the next. And back then, there was no safety net, no one to call. If the banks went down, your life savings went with them. Poof, gone. In 1907, it got so bad that one man, a banker named J.P. Morgan, reportedly gathered other bankers in his library and pressured them to pool their money to save the system. Think about that. The entire U.S. economy was rescued by one guy and his private fortune. And a lot of powerful people looked at that and thought, this is insane. We need something bigger than any single man. So in 1910, something strange happened. A handful of the most powerful bankers and one U.S. senator reportedly boarded a private train car under fake names. Their destination? A remote hunting club on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. We're talking names like a top senator and some of the richest bankers in the world, roughly a quarter of the planet's wealth reportedly sitting in a few rooms on one tiny island. They allegedly used only first names so the staff wouldn't figure out who they were. Why the secrecy? Because if the public found out that Wall Street bankers were writing the blueprint for America's banking system, people would lose their minds. And here's the thing. Years later, one of the men who was there actually admitted it. He reportedly compared it to a secret expedition. That meeting became the rough draft for what we now call the Federal Reserve. Fast forward to December 23, 1913. President Woodrow Wilson signs the Federal Reserve Act into law, and just like that, America has a central bank. But the founders were clever. Americans hated the idea of one giant bank controlling everything, so they didn't build one. They built 12 regional Federal Reserve banks spread across the country, from New York to San Francisco, all tied together under one board in Washington. It was public enough to feel safe and private enough to keep the bankers happy. A weird in-between creature that still confuses people today. Is it part of the government? Kind of. Is it a private bank? Also kind of. Told you it was weird. So what does this thing actually do? 3 big jobs. Job 1. It's a bank for banks. You keep your money at a bank, right? Well, banks keep their money at the Fed. When your bank needs cash overnight, it can borrow from the Fed. The Fed is the safety net underneath the whole system. Job 2, it keeps the money system running. Every time you swipe a card or a check clears, the Fed is quietly moving money in the background. And job 3, this is the big one. The Fed controls the faucet on that bathtub. It decides how much money flows through the entire economy. Oh, and it plays referee too. It helps watch over banks to make sure they're not doing anything too crazy with your money. But the money flow job, that runs on one main tool, interest rates. Okay, quick, simple version, because this is where a lot of people get lost. Interest is just the cost of borrowing money. When the Fed lowers interests, borrowing gets cheap. Cheap loans mean people buy houses and cars, businesses expand, and money floods into the bathtub. When the Fed raises rates, borrowing gets expensive. People pull back, spending slows, and the water level drops. That's it. Rates down, tub fills. Rates up, tub drains. Seriously, that's the whole trick. Everything else is just details. One dial that touches almost every dollar in your life. Your mortgage, your credit card, your student loan, even whether your boss can afford to give you a raise. But wait, if cheap money makes everybody happy, why would the Fed ever make it expensive? One word: inflation. When there's too much money chasing too few things, prices shoot up. That $5 lunch becomes $8. Your paycheck buys less. You felt this yourself the last few years, didn't you? So the Fed is stuck in a permanent balancing act. Congress gave it what's called a dual mandate, two goals it has to juggle at the same time. Number one, keep prices stable. Number two, keep as many people employed as possible. Here's the problem. Those two goals fight each other. Cool down inflation by raising rates.
And you might slow the economy so much that people lose jobs. Boost jobs with cheap money, and you risk prices spiraling. It's like driving a car where the gas pedal and the brake are the same pedal. Want to see this balancing act in real life? Rewind to the late 1970s. Inflation in America was out of control. Prices were climbing by double digits every single year. People were terrified their money was turning into confetti. So a tall, cigar-smoking man named Paul Volcker took over the Fed, and he did something brutal. He cranked interest rates up to around 20%. 20%! Imagine a mortgage where the interest alone eats you alive. Borrowing basically froze. The economy tipped into a painful recession. People lost jobs. Farmers drove tractors to Washington to protest. But here's the thing. It worked. Inflation finally broke. And that's the Fed in a nutshell. Sometimes it has to hand out the medicine that tastes awful to save the patient. So who actually makes these calls? A group with a boring name and enormous power. The FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee. Around 8 times a year, these people sit around a table and decide the direction of interest rates for the entire United States. When they finish talking, the Fed chair walks up to a microphone. And I mean it when I say the whole planet leans in. Traders freeze, screens light up, trillions of dollars move, sometimes on a single sentence. Every word gets picked apart. Analysts read the Fed chair's face like a poker game, hunting for hints. One phrase from the Fed chair can send the stock market soaring or crashing in seconds. No product, no army, just words about money. Here's a fun question. Who's actually in charge of all this? At the very top sits the Fed chair, picked by the president and approved by the Senate. Around them is a board of governors in Washington. Below that, the 12 regional banks, each with its own president. Put them together at the big table and you get the group that steers the money. The chair might just be the most powerful person you almost never think about. More powerful, some argue, than most senators. Maybe even more than the president when it comes to your wallet. Now here's where it gets almost unbelievable. Remember how I said the Fed can create money out of thin air? Let me show you how. In 2008, the financial system nearly collapsed. In 2020, a pandemic froze the entire economy overnight. Both times, the Fed reached for its most extreme tool. It's got a fancy name, quantitative easing, but the plain version is simpler. The Fed created trillions of new dollars and used them to buy up bonds and other assets. It didn't print paper, it just typed numbers into a computer and poof, new money existed that didn't exist a second before. Wild, right? Think about what that means. If you or I tried to create money like that, it's called counterfeiting and you go to prison. When the Fed does it, it's called policy. To give you a sense of the scale, the Fed's stash of assets, what they call its balance sheet, ballooned from under $1 trillion to nearly $9 trillion. $9 trillion. That's a number so big your brain can't really picture it. That flood of money helped stop the panic. It kept businesses alive and people in their homes. Homes, businesses, entire industries, all propped up by money that was essentially willed into being. But critics argue all that new money is part of why prices later climbed so hard. Every superpower has a price. Which brings us to the fight that never really ends. Should anyone have this much power? Here's something that surprises people. The Fed is designed to be independent. It doesn't run on money from Congress. It actually funds itself, mostly from the interest it earns. The idea is simple. If politicians controlled the money printer, they'd be tempted to flood the economy with cash right before every election and wreck it later. So the Fed was built to stay above the political food fight. But not everyone loves that. Some people say, hold on, unelected officials shouldn't have this much control over our lives. There have been movements to audit the Fed, even to end it entirely. One congressman even built a whole political movement around 3 words: end the Fed. Presidents have publicly pressured the Fed to bend to their wishes, but here's the uncomfortable part. That independence only works if people trust it. The moment folks believe the Fed is playing politics, the whole system starts to wobble. Because at the end of the day, money is really just a giant agreement. We all agree a dollar is worth a dollar. And the Fed's real job? Protecting that agreement, keeping us all believing. Real quick, this video is for educational and awareness purposes only. It is not financial advice. Okay, so let's zoom back out. Here's the strange truth about the Federal Reserve. It's not really a villain, and it's not really a hero. It's more like the thermostat for the entire economy. When things run too hot, it tries to cool them down. When things freeze up, it tries to warm them back up. The problem, nobody can perfectly predict the weather. So every few years, the Fed makes its best guess. Sometimes it gets it right and saves us from disaster. Sometimes it's too slow or too aggressive, and we all feel it in our wallets. But now you get it. You know about the secret island meeting, the 12 banks, the dual mandate, the magic money button. The next time you hear a news anchor say the Fed raised rates today, you'll actually know what just happened to that giant bathtub of money we all live in. Not bad for a few minutes, right? And trust me, you're already ahead of most people. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.